assessing language online. What are the strengths, challenges, and opportunities that we have? All right, so very briefly, if you have missed our previous session, so METASIG, this acronym refers to Measurement, Evaluation, Testing, and Assessment Special Interest Group affiliated with TESOL Turkey. And we set up this community, let's say, back in October. So we are only a few months old. And we're hoping to grow with your participation, collaboration, and cooperation with us in the future. And what is our aim? Why do we have this community called METASIG? Basically, our basic aim is to create a platform where we as members work together, disseminate information, exchange opinions as well as expertise through various activities such as workshops, seminars, discussion forums, and maybe pre-conference events like these and training sessions. The scope is so wide, so we will make it happen all together. So don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts to get informed, get updated about our upcoming events as well. And for those of you who missed the first session, our plenary speaker was Richard Spivey. He is a test development researcher working for the British Council. And just a few housekeeping issues before we get started the second session. This session will be recorded and shared with the METASIG members if you all agree. If you have some hesitations about the recording of the session, just please share it with us through the chat panel. And just emphasizing, the session will be shared with the METASIG members only in the future. And please remain muted throughout the whole session. There's going to be a Q&A session towards the end. During the panel session, please write your questions in the chat panel. Me and my friends will be collecting your questions, and we will address those questions towards the end in the Q&A part. Okay, without further ado, let's start this session. I will be kindly moderating this session, this panel discussion. And my friends Berna from Koç University, Berna Arslan, Pınar Gündüz from Sabancı University, and Elif Çilli from Eastern Mediterranean University will be with us all. And we'll talk about the strengths, challenges, and opportunities. And towards the end, just a reminder, we're going to have a feedback session. And let's get started. We are all aware that the pandemic, the COVID-19, brought us many challenges, but later on we discovered some opportunities and strengths as well. But let's first of all talk about these challenges. At the beginning, it was a great challenge for all of us. And now I want to leave the stage to my friend Elif Çilli. And I'm asking this question to her. What are some of the challenges that assessment developers, as well as teachers, have encountered while assessing online? Elif?
Okay, thank you, Esen. Now, as you said, with the breakout of the COVID-19, universities quickly moved to emergency remote teaching. And soon, test writers, assessment developers started to think of how will the assessment take place. And so assessment developers started asking, how shall we do the tests? What needs to be changed in the test specifications? How will this affect the teaching and the learning process? And which platform would be suitable to use while carrying out the assessment? And what support do teachers, students need? So these were the first challenges for the assessors, I think. So this is how it all started a year ago. Now, when we look back at the challenges faced by assessment developers and teachers who did their own tests, I would say that the major challenges have been, one, challenges in terms of reliability. 2, challenges in terms of extra workload for the assessment developer and the teachers. And 3 would be challenges due to the limitations of the online test platforms. And of course, challenges due to poor internet connections have been I would say these were the 4 main headings I can say for in terms of challenges while thinking of online assessment. Now, I want to talk a bit more in detail about these 4 challenges that I have just mentioned. So when we're talking about challenges in terms of reliability, I think this has been a headache for all of us. And academic dishonesty has been a big challenge, very big challenge. Due to the law of protection of personal data, it wasn't possible to ask students to open their cameras. Maybe some, especially in Cyprus, this was possible, but we didn't really do this. But in Turkey, I know that that's a big problem. So invigilation, online invigilation was not a possibility. So what did this bring? It gives a chance to the students to use Google Translate to plagiarism, maybe get help from their peers, relatives, and other friends. So this was a big problem. And institutions, different universities tried different ways of tackling this problem, actually. So how can we minimize academic dishonesty or cheating? Some universities tried to reduce the time limit given during the exams, which personally I think is not very, it invades the reliability of the exam actually when you do that, because it's a new platform for the students. They're used to sit exams in the classroom, they get a pen, paper, and they do it. And this time they have to focus on the screen and try to do it. So it's really unfair on the student, I think, giving less time than is needed for taking the exam. Another thing is with the readings, especially, you have to scroll up, you have to scroll down. I know that some universities have tried to make the readings like the reading and the questions next to each other, so students can it can be more user-friendly for the students, but in most cases they had to scroll up, scroll down to answer the questions for the readings. Apart from that, typing is another issue for this when it comes to time, considering time for these exams, because they're used to writing with a pen on the exam paper, but when it comes to typing, they can be quite slow actually. And that's another thing that we have to consider while thinking of timing. And navigation can be slow, the connection can be weak, so that needs extra time as well. So we have had exams where we had to go into the settings and extend it a bit more due to these connection problems. Apart from these, what can I say about the reliability is another way that to handle cheating has been considering different sets for different students. Say it's a quiz for 10 points. The assessment team prepares 40 questions, and then the platform allows to send 10 questions from these 40 questions which are prepared. But then again, I'm not sure if this is really fair on the student, because it's a bit risky. The level of difficulty has to be considered, so not really a perfect solution, I guess. Proctoring system is another thing which is considered by many universities. In my institution as well, it is considered, but we haven't used proctoring system. It's quite expensive. It requires too much preparations. It needs institutional resources, student hardware resources, training, implementation. That's another thing. And proctoring system is one way of dealing with, I guess, cheating. Now, when I come to the second challenge that I mentioned, which was the workload, the extra workload, which has been placed on especially assessment developers, is for number one, test writers all had to familiarize themselves with this online exam platforms, this online quiz platforms. It was quite stressful. I mean, when you're doing even the settings, just skipping one tiny thing can totally ruin the exam. So that was a big stress, familiarizing themselves with the exam platform, I would say. Apart from that, test specifications needed revision because now everything was going online. So what do? We had to consider, do we focus more on productive skills like speaking, presentations, essays, in order to minimize the risk of the cheating that goes on in online tests, or what should we do? So different universities opted for different solutions, I guess. For example, some universities, in terms of standardization and security, had their own platforms, and exams had to go through had to be administered through those platforms, and these platforms allow for multiple choice questions. So open-ended questions, testing of speaking, testing of writing was either omitted or was given very little percentage in some universities, I think. And also, when this is the case, the preparation of multiple choice questions is another issue. It's much more time-consuming, focus and attention, and it has to go through filters of maybe more than one eye. So you have to get it proofread, moderated, although we always do this. It needs extra care when you're talking about multiple choice, because the distractors have to be very sensitively prepared, I would say. Giving mock exams for every quiz and exam was another issue. So test assessors had to prepare mock exams for even quizzes, and detailed guidelines had to go for students, for the teachers. So this was another workload that was on the assessment assessors. Supporting of teachers, as I said, that was the guideline. And I think not having a question bank was one big issue that that hurt me the most, I would say, because once you put the exam online, it's there. The security is violated. So you cannot keep that in your exam bank and use some parts of it or some questions from it after a certain amount of time, because you just made it public to a lot of people. So I would say these were the extra workload challenges for the assessors. Coming to my third point, which was 1 minute, sorry, which was the platform used for testing, online testing. So as I said, some universities had their own platform to keep everything standard and secured and under control. And it was mainly multiple choice as far as I know. So that was one problem about it. Reading, when we consider putting online tasks on the platforms, it had some problems, it had some challenges, like you cannot put line numbers. you cannot use visuals. It's a risk to put visuals because it might not open, it might slow down the system. So these type of problems for the reading. In case of listening, some universities prefer to omit assessing listening through online tests because of the technological load of the audios. And also when marking, sometimes some platforms are not very user-friendly for marking for the teacher as well, very time-consuming, very confusing, I guess. Now, I'm coming to my last point, which is poor internet connection. How am I with the time, Sin?
You're doing fine, Elif.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, as I said, poor internet connection is another problem, another chaos. The students were stressed, we were stressed as test writers, the teachers were stressed because suddenly you have a message from a student, Hocam, I cannot move to the next page. And you say to them, it's your internet connection. Your friends can move, but refresh. Sometimes some platforms allow you to go out of the exam and come back, log back and continue. Sometimes maybe they don't, I'm not sure. But so internet problem has been a big headache, a big challenge on the exam day. Everyone is stressed and sometimes students cannot even take the exam due to their internet connection problems. Sometimes they start the exam and they cannot complete the exam due to some technical problems and internet problems. So this would mean more makeups for exams, makeups for quizzes. So that's another big stress and workload, I would guess. And that's the internet connection problem, I think, is one of the main reasons why some institutions have omitted listening from their assessment components. So I have talked about 4 challenges. One is the cheating challenge, the reliability, which violates the reliability of the exam. The other one is the extra workload on the assessors, the teachers. The challenges we faced in terms of online platforms that we use for testings and the poor internet connection. So these are basically what I would like to say about the major challenges that we have been facing for the last 1 year. Esin, your microphone.
Okay, thank you, Elif. Thank you for your contributions to the session. We have some questions that were raised already. We will share them towards the end. Yeah, we faced with lots of challenges. All the people here, I think, you know, have experienced all these troubles that you summarized so far. But what about the strengths? What about the positive sides of it? Do you think, Pınar, do you think conducting assessments online has had a positive impact on the teaching and learning processes and also for various stakeholders? What do you think, Pınar?
I definitely agree with that, Esin. Thank you. I would say most of the challenges that we faced, the ones that Elif has just mentioned, were more of a problem, especially in the spring semester. And let's face it, it was a nightmare for the test developers. It was really hard when we were thrown into this online education and we had to prepare all of our exams online all of a sudden. And, you know, a lot of us had no experience in it. But I think we were much better prepared for, you know, summer and then especially for the fall semester, and things have been going quite smoothly. And we have already started to observe some of the benefits of online assessment. I think, you know, one of the biggest advantages is probably that it has sort of stretched our understanding of standardization. Because as assessors, as test developers, we are a little bit too obsessed sometimes about standardization, and we have to, of course. I mean, it's very important for us that students are tested fairly and that they are, you know, we are consistent in our grading, we are consistent in our scoring of the students, and we are fair to them. But actually, that has a price too. And when we consider about those prices, we were, I think, maybe a little bit too heavily standardized before the pandemic started. And when we looked at the balance between receptive versus production level skills and their assessment, I would say most of the institutions favored the testing of receptive skills over production level skills for obvious reasons. And there were some institutions who already started implementing various alternative assessment methods, but usually they were minimally weighted because, again, we had challenges that we had to face in terms of standardization, reliability. However, with the pandemic, we had to be more innovative in our approach, and we had to try different assessment methods. So let me give you some examples of what these methods were. One was, I think, more incorporation of integrated skills assessments in certain institutions, in various institutions, where the students were asked to integrate, use at least two separate skills. One example I can give is timed reading into writing essays, for instance, tests, or take-home exams where students read a couple of resources, maybe also listen to a lecture, and then synthesize those sources to write a summary or a response. We also had, more examples of process-based assessment. Like I said, the portfolio was already part of many of the institutions, but we have started seeing more components added to the portfolios. So, for example, reading has, been added to the portfolios in some institutions. Speaking tasks has increased. The number of the speaking tasks in the portfolios have increased. Extensive listening has been, implemented and incorporated in the portfolio work. The weighting of the portfolio assessment also has increased in many institutions. And also, for instance, process writing or process presentations also started to be seen in more and more courses and programs. And I'm not talking about just prep years, I'm also talking about, of course, faculty level English courses. So in those process-oriented approaches, process essays, for instance, the students start with either a research question or their thesis, and they produce an outline, they get feedback, maybe they have a tutorial, and then they write a draft. Again, the teacher gives feedback, then the students write an essay at the end. So the final product comes at a later stage. But the teacher is able to observe the student from the very beginning to the end. So if there is a reliability concern, if there is any concern that the student is maybe getting some external assistance, the teacher can easily notice this because they can observe the whole process, they can observe the whole progress of the students. And this also, of course, means that the teachers can identify learning gaps more quickly and give feedback to their students to improve their progress and learning, basically. Continuous assessment. We've also, we have been in contact with many other institutions, of course, and we have been hearing different institutions trying out different continuous assessment methods. Some, for instance, have started grading students when they are on task, student interaction in class, student involvement in the task, for instance. Or the learning management systems. They give us a lot of data in terms of whether the student has been completing the homework regularly, whether they have been doing extra work that the teacher may have assigned. And these actually have been turned into ways of grading the students, and some grade, although not a very big grade perhaps, but still some grade is added to their overall course grade. And again, it gives the teacher to observe and track student progress throughout the course. Collaborative learning tasks, collaborative tasks, for example, project-based learning, problem-based learning, or task-based approach, and task-based assessment. And in these types of assessment, the students work in teams, and that actually gave us a unique opportunity to cover for that gap of socialization. So the students were not able to socialize when the education was online, but we didn't have these components maybe. But when the students are forced to work in group towards an assessment, it gives them one more chance to make contact with others and learn to be university students, learn to work in teams, to work together towards the same goal. And it, of course, increases student interaction, and it helps us to give a lot of skills, 21st century skills, such as problem solving, collaboration, team building, accountability. So things like that also started to be taught in classes, and they also helped us measure students' language skills while they were on task, while they were actually producing the skills, versus when they were just remembering information, regurgitating information that they remember from lectures or course books. So these tools actually all focus on process and student progress, and there is a lot of feedback and tracking of student work going on. And there is also the added benefit that they give students more responsibility. So it's actually teaching them how to become university students, or how to become responsible students, how to have good study skills. Because let's take portfolio as an example. So the students have to follow the deadlines of task submissions. They have to follow the deadlines of tutorials, set up tutorials with their teachers. And they have to make it to the tutorial, and they have to be prepared for it. So all these responsibilities were actually more clear and more pronounced, more emphasis. And I would say it has had a clear impact on students' study skills for this reason. And it also includes students' inclusivity and belonging, sense of belonging in their assessment as well as their learning. So we were talking about students' involvement in their learning, but now we are also talking about students' involvement in their assessment. And as Richard also shared, peer assessment and self-assessment, these are all concepts that I think will be even more used in the future. And it's not just alternative assessment. When we think about standardized tests, let's say a reading exam or a listening exam, the question types also sort of transformed. We have started adding questions such as interpretation, questions that require interpretation, inferencing, critical thinking, and personalized responses rather than just selecting one response. Although not all of our questions were obviously like that, we started adding them, and I think they will become more and more common in the future. So all these skills are actually testing higher order thinking skills. So instead of testing learners' language at receptive level, we are more focusing on higher thinking, depth of learning, actually. Or take grammar and vocabulary assessment. We have started incorporating production-based tasks because it is harder to cheat, basically. The students have to, write their own sentences, and if they cheat, if they take it from somewhere, we can easily find it through Turnitin, or we can just easily compare their answers with others. So I think those are the, advantages of the assessment systems, I would say. And one more thing I could add on this is probably the increase in the speaking. Although, as Elif said, speaking was not part of the spring semester courses, maybe because it was so last minute, it is becoming more and more incorporated in the assessment schemes. A lot of institutions already had it, but their weighting has increased. The speaking assessment tools weighting has increased, and their frequency has increased. For instance, for Sabancı, I can give you the example of our proficiency exam, which consisted of speaking and writing only. And that was, basically new to us. We didn't have it before. And when we have speaking in class, when you have the speaking assessment going on more frequently and with higher percentages, as Richard also said, it has a positive backwash in classroom teaching and learning. The teachers incorporate it more in their classes and the students demand it more, and they are more active. They are attending classes and they're active in classes because they know that they are going to be tested on it. And we are not in an English speaking environment. Therefore, this is very valuable for us. This is very important for us that the students actually use that opportunity in class, during class time, to speak, to contribute to the lessons. So I think, we will start observing a lot of positive washback in the years to come as well. I think that's all about instruction, and I now would like to move on to its impact on our first and the most important stakeholders, our students. And I would like to touch on two important points for me, actually, the most important points for me, I would say. And one is that the system, the online assessment system, actually helped us address learner needs better. And with learner needs, I mean, for instance, when we talk about, when I'm talking about students with special needs, special difficulties, such as eyesight problems or hearing problems or other difficulties. So when we think about pen and paper tests, they were quite restrictive in terms of their adaptability for people with different needs, but when we think about online assessment, it actually helped us have a range of possibilities for modification. It helped our learners to modify their exam environment, test environment, based on their own needs. So for example, if a student has dyslexia or an eye condition, or even a minor eye condition like astigmatic defect, let's say, we can easily now adjust the settings of our computer monitor so that the contrast is higher, the fonts are bigger, the fonts are something that we like, that we can easily read, the font sizes are bigger, and we can zoom in anytime we want. And I think that's really important as someone with astigmatic defect myself. I think this is really precious. Or if a student had an hearing impairment, let's say, even if it wasn't too big a problem, still the sound that comes from the computer or the class sound system may not be as clear for these students, but here in their home environment, they can actually get special equipment if they want and adjust it in their room, place them in their room in a way that is the most helpful to them. So this is actually creating a fairer test environment for them, and we actually don't have to do anything. They do it for themselves, and I think that's great. What else? The virus, I don't think is going away anytime soon. It seems that even after the vaccination, we will still have to wear our masks. And I don't know if any of you, tried taking an exam with glasses and a mask on. I did on Sunday. And, I had heard that it causes fogginess. It causes the glass to get foggy. So I had my cologne with me. I thought it would fix the problem. But hey, little did I know, it had no impact at all. And think about what's going to happen. How are we going to respond to such needs? It's not a major eye impairment. It's not a major problem. Many people have glasses. What are they going to do? How are they going to take the tests? Are we going to push them, force them to use lenses, for instance? But this way, everyone can actually take the exam in a way that they wish. And this is really important. And for all the students, the second thing is for everyone, classroom environment is really stressful. Taking an exam in a classroom environment is really stressful. And therefore, taking the exam in their own homes, in their own rooms, in a familiar, comfortable place, makes the students less stressed. And this is also very positive as well. My last point will be about, I will take only 1 more minute. I'm sorry, I think did I use a lot of time? Sorry. Okay, so last point is, okay, great. The last point I would like to mention is the administrative benefits, the benefits for the institutions. And there are three main things I can mention. One is better record keeping for everyone. Lessons are automatically recorded and archived. Exams are automatically recorded and archived. Item analysis results, student information sheets, student papers, everything is in an organized way and easily accessible, and this is really important. The second thing is the flexibility and the practicality of exam arrangements. For example, we don't have to wait until a later hour to start giving our exams because we are worried about either extreme weather conditions or the traffic in town. We can start the exams at 9 and have multiple shifts if we want to. And that has, given us some good flexibility when you consider a proficiency exam where thousands of students, for instance, are taking the exam. We don't have to worry about transportation or lunch queues. And those have been positive impacts. And we can also make better use of available resources. So for example, I know that some institutions have given oral exams with only one invigilator, but they recorded that exam so that other teachers can actually do double-blind grading afterwards. So it allows us to have meetings efficiently, standardization meetings and training sessions. And finally, it allows us to save costs. When you think about the costs that go into pen and paper tests, printing, for instance, some institutions have to hire a test hall, or we have to think about storage or even disposal of these exams. There are companies that we use to dispose those exams and we pay for them. Or we buy optical reader sheets, or we rent optical marker machines and data analysts sometimes if the exam is really big. But now we can do them with our own means, and I think these all have been very positive. So I think finally, even if we're going to go back to our old system, post-virus era, let's say, I think we are going to keep a lot of the features, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Pınar, for your contributions. Yes, there is going to be a post-COVID era, definitely. We are hopeful about it. We'll get rid of this virus, but I believe teaching online and assessing online will stay with us forever from now on. It's been a major change in our lives. Although we may have hybrid, blended, or face-to-face teaching, still we'll make use of the benefits of, we will benefit from these online assessment systems in the long run as well. There's going to be more alternative assessments. I agree, continuous assessment, peer assessment, self-assessment, now they're all available, doable with the help of technology, with the digital technologies. Thank you very much again, Pınar. Now, let's focus on the opportunities. What is coming up? What is the future like? Now, Berna, what are some of the changes or improvements that you think will be pervasive in the future from a managerial or administrative point of view?
I'll try to answer that, Esin, but while I was listening to my colleagues focusing on challenges and then strengths, as a manager, you find yourself, and I found myself trying to weigh what is better, what is not. So the manager's role is becoming even more important than, more challenging than ever, Esin. And we're going to try to, of course, it will be with us, and we'll try to continue with something online in our assessment, but that we need to make strategic planning and strategic decisions. Richard was talking about decision-making. Assessment is all about decision-making, informing our decisions. So as a manager or from a managerial perspective, I can say that there will be lots of ongoing planning and changing plans, which has been happening in the last year. And good analysis of the needs arising in the community and in all stakeholders. So everyone is now eager to change things, and everyone is talking about benefits of it, like Pınar outlined very nicely. But of course, when you make a decision, you need to understand what opportunity is there are useful for you. So not every opportunity is a blessing, I would say, but which ones you would like to pick and bring it to your institution, and considering everyone's needs. That's a challenge. And it requires fundamental changes in the priority lists and practices of an institution. And as most of us are from prep schools of universities, maybe from the other institutions as well, I can say that we're not functioning on our own. So what I see as an opportunity must make sense to the other stakeholder as an opportunity. So there will be lots of negotiations going on. And to weigh what is better, like, yes, there will be less manual administrative duties like the ones listed by Pınar, and there will be lots of time, lots of saving for us. But how can we make better use of our human resources then? How can we make all this work? That's a challenge and an opportunity, because when you're thinking about all these, you need to find an alternative, a kind of a solution, and that will be our opportunity, I can say. And I'm just trying to outline what a manager is now experiencing. I'm sure there are some among us. And you need to maintain a balance between reducing workloads versus integrity of assessment. So how are you going to keep integrity when there is the danger of cheating, reliability issues, while there are beautiful benefits of it? So as a manager, we need to find the opportunity. That's why I cannot say this is an opportunity for us, but we need to analyze our own needs, our own stakeholders' needs, to be able to see what an opportunity is. And once we identify them, we need to be making decisions about our budget. Which technologies will be relevant to our students' needs and our instructors' needs? Which one should I invest in? What is the infrastructure required for that? Are we ready to, okay, there is a beautiful program out there, but can I use it with my student profile? Can I use it with my instructor profile? If I can say yes, then I need to start investing in it. And this requires, of course, human investment. Of course, there's a program, but we'll be making use of it as assessors and testers or managers. And there are, for example, artificial intelligence and approaches like adaptive comparative judgments based on automated grading and then automated scoring, which gives us direct results, perfect. But how are we going to turn them into an opportunity without ruining the rest of the systems working? That's another consideration. And recruitment. It's sad to say that, but we haven't been trained to act in an online platform. We are not teachers who have been trained to assess, or testers, let's focus on testers. We're not testers who are trained to assess in an online platform. So that requires lots of training for the testers. And this will turn into a kind of a requirement in the recruitment. We'll be looking for people who can understand and manage these online assessment procedures. So that's an opportunity for the teachers who want to develop themselves and grow further. And our current or existing test developers, how can they evaluate and adapt new software? How can they understand what they need to do with it? Most probably we have all experienced that. Yes, perfect, we have this. I don't want to name any brand, that's why I'm not using. So this LMS, and I will use this for this purpose, perfect. But how are we going to do that? That was a challenge. And we turned it into an opportunity by trying to communicate with departments that would help us. And then that was a lot of work and workload. While trying to reduce workload, that became a workload like Elif was talking about. So, but in the long run, is it going to be an opportunity for us? I think yes, definitely it will be an opportunity. And of course, technology fluency development in this, as Richard was saying, testing is not only for test developers, and test developers are teachers. So teachers, testing, technology, bringing them together, integrating everything and making it work. It's an opportunity to have a working system, but the way to go there requires a lot of strategic planning and decision making, I can say. And being technologically literate being involved in researching, experimenting with different approaches will definitely make our testing group better. But how is it going to happen, and what are the opportunities there? And we were lucky to hear some of the opportunities free of charge from Richard, and maybe we can learn about it, at least develop our assessment literacy. So that's an opportunity. Exam security, only testing people were, and the management, we were, I can say were, because it has changed, interested in exam security. We were like people panicking about exam security, but now all the world is interested in exam security, and I'm sure there will be opportunities to take measures to prevent cheating, and that's an area that will develop. And everyone has become aware of the law of personal data protection. Nobody knew about it. Last year, we were all getting recordings from students without getting any permission. Now, we ask for permission from a single student to use anything from them or to be able to store them even. So that's an opportunity because individual rights are being protected. So I can see it as an opportunity. But thinking about all of these, managers and assessment managers, let's say coordinators, they're going to be more accountable and accountable for what they're doing, and people will be asking for transparency more and more, because we know that information can be gathered easily and stakeholders will be asking for regular reports from us. That's an opportunity for development. And when there is this request from the stakeholders, I'm sure institutions will be taking care of what they are doing in a better way. So this is all about managerial considerations in my mind, and I can see lots of opportunities there, but we need to explore what they are. Another opportunity is job opportunities, actually. I'm sure this will lead to lots of developments in educational technologies, like there will be more data analysis specialists who specialize in education only. So education technologists are not a lot in the market at the moment, but I can see lots of certificate programs, master's programs, developing more and more people interested in and specialize in education technology. So that will be an opportunity for language assessors as well. I'm sure there are lots of young people who would like to specialize in assessment. Maybe they'll choose a way to specialize in online assessment because that's the market need at the moment. And software designers, teachers maybe are not that interested in softwares, but most probably there'll be new people who learn from writing codes, for example, right from their high schools. They may want to become teachers or language assessors one day, knowing about codes and writing codes about such things. So that will be another job area that I can see now happening. And we are using some plagiarism softwares, but there are only a few available that are commonly used. I'm sure most of the institutions will be requesting more and more softwares, and maybe institutions will be investing in developing such softwares within their own system. And the third thing is collaboration opportunities like this, because Richard was right when he was talking about assessment training. Assessment training was limited before. And when you were lucky to have a master's course or a BA in English language teaching or related area, there would be one module only focusing on assessment, and you would try to learn it from there and then with the limited resources. Now, Richard listed quite a lot of actually free resources, courses, and I can see that people will be learning more about assessment, and that knowledge will be disseminated in a positive way. So that's an opportunity. I think that's the biggest opportunity. And assessment developer networks like FOI, we used to have FOI, and it turned into METASIG now. Now we are together trying to collaborate, share our experiences, and look at the future, trying to see what will happen in the future. So that's an opportunity, definitely. And webinars, MOOCs, everything is an opportunity regardless of what the cost is, or maybe most of them are free of charge, as I said. And there will be projects requiring more collaboration with different departments like IT or different faculties like computer science, trying to develop assessment together. That's another opportunity I can see. And while preparing our online institutional exams during the pandemic, we had to communicate a lot. They didn't know about our needs. And now I can see that there's some at least common knowledge shared, and they started to understand what we are experiencing in the prep school. So that's the development and opportunity. And as we have all talked about, data collection, like people like us interested in assessment, we love data, and researchers will be collecting more data. There used to be times when I was also worried about sharing assessment data. It was like a secret, hidden for the institution. We never shared it with any of the institutions out there. I can see that most of the institutions will be sharing their data and doing comparative analysis of it. That's a huge research area. I believe if this research opportunity can be utilized effectively, there will be lots of impact on the future of English language teaching and language assessment. I can see it as an opportunity. And during this pandemic again, when we became online in our assessment, we started to use management systems to make decisions like decision trees, strategy maps, okay, where is it going to, what is it going to happen, etc. And metrics which are meaningful for both the institutions, university and our own institution, the unit. We started to develop some common interests and common needs, which you can easily see in the decision trees. And this helped us make predictive models about the future. Most of the universities are working on now their future, and our institution is the same. We are, for the first time maybe, prep school is communicating with the faculties in a better way in terms of assessment. So they are learning from us. Most of the faculty people are trying to learn what we are doing as an assessment, because we are assessment oriented as language institutions. So these research opportunities, as I said, will be both local and national and maybe international. So we'll see what's going to happen in the future. And that definitely, because they have been mentioned by Pınar and Elif, I don't want to talk about some of the things which are obvious, but there will be blended assessment happening. So even if we go back to our old days, I would like to actually, but that will be the new normal, as people say. And we will definitely have blended hybrid systems in our assessment. For example, we have already decided that our proficiency exam speaking assessment part will be online and the rest will be face-to-face. And once we find solutions for the others, maybe we can go online for everything for high-stake exams, I mean. And most probably we'll be looking for opportunities like automated scoring and automated scoring systems that can be added on our own systems to make things more effective and easier. And computer adaptive assessments have become very popular, but they are not that prevalent at the moment. They're not known by most of the institutions. But I believe AI-powered adaptive tests will help us save lots of time that we spend writing up multiple versions of the same exam. So there will be lots of AI opportunities out there. And going back to the previous points, this will be happening in some of the job areas and people will be specializing in it. And online placement exams, most probably we will not be asking people to come to our campus for 1 hour to be placed in a level. We'll be assessing more online giving more online, administering more online placement exams. And they will happen in multiple locations over different time scales because they will be available on mobile devices. And we'll have contingency plans like Pınar was talking about. What if there is extreme weather condition? What if there is this and that? So we'll not, most probably, even if we prepare face-to-face exam, we'll be able to move it to an online platform. We'll have contingencies. And finally, I can say that there will be, of course, like Richard put it very nicely, we are not going to be teaching to test, but our assessment will have definitely definite impacts on our learning, and alternative assessment, process-oriented assessment, transformation from pen and paper to online tests will be continuing and growing much more than ever. And students, of course, taking these exams online will develop several skills that they haven't been able to develop before. So these are some of the opportunities I can outline. I don't know whether they make sense. They make me enthusiastic and eager to try out lots of new online systems for our assessment. But of course, as I said at the beginning, this requires careful thinking and following the regulations imposed on us by law, by Higher Education Council. I'm sure we'll be limited, but at the same time, we'll be growing further. Thank you, Esin.
Thank you. Thank you, Berna. I think there has been a technical problem in your very last sentence, during your very last sentence.
I'm sorry about it. I forgot what I said, but I can say probably that'll be good things happening. Thank you very much.
So one of the highlights you just mentioned is data-driven and evidence-based teaching and learning. I think that's the future. And we will make use of or utilize such digital platforms so that we can get more data about the learners, their behaviors, their progress, etc. And we will be able to make improvements in our curriculum and assessments accordingly. Evidence-based and data-driven teaching and learning will become more prevalent, I believe, and I totally agree with that. So thank you very much to all our panelists so far. Now it's Q&A session, Q&A part. Thank you for the questions that you have just raised. We have some questions asked particularly to one panelist and to all panelists as well. So let's begin with the first one. I believe one of the greatest challenges is item analysis. So item analysis is a lot more difficult when it is online. So do you have some suggestions for this process? How can we conduct item analysis online? Elif, Berna, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, actually, I can start and anyone can help me continue. It depends on the system you're using. As I said, yes, we can do all of these item analysis, etc., but it depends on, again, what you're using. For example, the LMS we're using provides the item analysis immediately for every class, and you can compare them, collate them. So most probably, I don't know what is happening with other systems. That's why I'm limited in my answer to this question. But I can say that there will be even the, okay, it's difficult to talk without names, but even with basic versions of LMSs, there are systems which give you item analysis. So maybe we can ask anyone who tried to gather data without the LMS giving this information. Are there anyone?
So the LMSs that we use provide us with automatic item analysis. Most of us utilize those, and it's very beneficial, I believe. But is there anyone who does it in a different way outside an LMS platform?
Yeah.
No, I think. So this is digitally available, actually, with the help of LMSs. And it seems all the higher education institutions, if they haven't so far, will have to invest in a proper learning management system in the future. It's
Exactly.
a must.
Maybe, and this requires some guidance actually. Maybe the program, the system people are using has that, but they haven't found out about it, because you need to a little bit explore and ask for it. Maybe as an add-on, it can be by the provider.
Exactly. So thank you. And Pinar, could you give an example of how reading has been included in a portfolio? You mentioned about portfolio continuous assessment. So how reading can be integrated in a portfolio assessment?
One institution, for instance, integrated one of the reading platforms, online reading platforms, where students can log in and complete tasks assigned to them. And they have been, asking the students to add their work at the work that they have done extra, or their assigned readings in their portfolios. And it's not just answering the questions there, but the teachers are also setting personalized or text-based questions as well, where students have to respond to the text. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is if going thematically, and if, for instance, your theme is, let's say, on health, and we ask the students to find an article on health. Of course, we provide them some guidelines, and then students work on their own chosen text to produce either a summary or a response to the text, or some way of combining class material with the extra article that they have found, and they put it in their portfolio collection. And in the end, it's graded like that. It can be graded like that.
Thank you, Pinar. And one final question here. There is one university, this participant says that there is one university in Istanbul shifted away from high-stake exams during pandemic. So they changed their assessment system and they excluded the high-stake exam. So the question is, if excluding any high-stake exam would be a viable option for other institutions? So a radical change in the assessment schemes, will that be possible? To all the panelists.
Can I start with the negative?
Yes, please, Berna.
I would say no. No meaning I wouldn't remove it, because at the end of the day, you're going to make decisions. You're replacing something that was working for your decisions with something else. So I wouldn't remove it. This is my personal idea. But from the law perspective, you cannot actually. It's very dangerous. When you replace something, you need to replace it with something similar, assessing similar skills. Otherwise, the students in the system in the previous year were maybe disadvantaged or advantaged, and you're making a difference in your implementation of decision-making tool. So there are legal issues there, especially for the universities. The other day we were talking about it, as you'll remember. The universities that have law departments, law faculties, then you will be very careful by when you're making decisions about changing this. You can learn about it, but when students complain about it, you may not be able to justify your decision.
Yeah. Pinar, would you like to add something to this question or comment?
Maybe just a mini addition could be that we are also gatekeepers, unfortunately, and we can't let students who are not ready to move on to their faculty studies, because it's to their disadvantage, actually. They will not be able to cope with the faculty demands if they are studying in an English medium environment faculty. So I also see lots of drawbacks to it, and I would suggest a more balanced approach, some of the alternative methods, but also supplemented with standardized assessments still.
Mm-hmm. And there is one addition to this question actually coming from another participant saying that are these high stakes exams replaced with continuous assessments? Will that be ever possible? But I believe, just as Pınar said, blending those will be the result, the end of it.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. It seems we don't have any further questions. If I have missed any, I'm just checking once again. By the way, you can still raise your questions in the chat box if you have a burning question out there. And in the meantime, I would like to ask our panelists once again whether they have a few final words or statements before we close the session. Shall we start with Elif again?
Okay, final words. What can we say now? Yes, there are challenges, but there are opportunities as well. Every challenge brings about new opportunities and new changes and new developments. So I'm quite optimistic about the future. And yes, like my friend said, we will never go completely back to what we were doing before. We've found out that some things are much more practical. So we will keep some, and we will use some of the old habits, let's say. So we will have a blend. We will have a hybrid learning environment and hybrid testing environment. I'm not sure if we can use the word hybrid for that, but so that is what I want to say, and I'm very, very excited about it. It's my 25th year in this job as a teacher, as an assessor, as a team leader, blah blah. But it's I love it. I love this challenge. It is very good. We're all singing from the same song sheet at the moment. Everyone is singing from the same song sheet within the institution and throughout institutions, I guess. So we're all in the same boat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elif. Pınar?
I mean, I can just repeat basically what I have tried to emphasize, that we shouldn't actually let go of these production-based, authentic sorts of assessment, types of assessment that make the students work both individually and also in pairs or in groups, because it better reflects faculty requirements, real life requirements, and the real language use. So I really hope that this is something that we will keep even after the pandemic ends, hopefully soon.
So we said that alternative assessments are more prevalent, but actually when we check the literature, alternative assessment is somehow linked with authentic assessment, real life kind of tasks.
Performance-based assessment.
Performance-based, process-based.
I mean, we have had these concepts for a very long time, but they haven't been taking a real place in our assessment scheme. So I think this is an issue that we will probably work on solving in the future.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Pınar. And finally, Berna.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to add something actually that's related to what I've said. I think everyone should learn to understand learning analytics. There has been lots of data available so far, even with the books, online platforms, etc. There is lots of data to understand learner behavior and how we can make decisions looking at that learner behavior about our tasks. When you provide them with some assessment, there are always we can always actually get some data about how fast they can do it, how long it takes for them to process that information, plus what they like. Even with the alternative assessment task, you can easily say that looking at the quality, students seem to be learning in this task better. So that data will be available. But the problem and the opportunity is, how are we going to understand and analyze and make our decisions based on that data? So data analysis, I think that will be another area that we can invest in. Data analysis, making strategic decisions based on that, and helping instructors and test developers grow in that area will have lots of benefits for teacher training. So that's another point I would like to raise, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Again, that was an opportunity. You spent your afternoon with us. We tried to actually summarize what you have been experiencing, because that's all based on our observation of what's happening in the world and in our country and in our institutions. It's beautiful to see that opportunity is being exploited at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Berna. And I totally agree, learning analytics will become more important in the years to come. Yes, it's a bit scary if you don't like statistics, if you don't like, numbers, maths, figures, it's okay. Still, we have the software that provides us with all the data, it's all right. But as teachers, we should be able to read and understand that data. It is important because no software will be able to interpret it for us. We are the ones who know our students. We are the ones who know our curriculum and our context and teachers. So we as teachers and assessors need to be able to read and interpret that data. And it's not that scary. I've been dealing with it for like 5 years now. It's fun, actually, learning about, getting some insight about learner behavior is really cool with the help of data, actually. Thank you very much. As Berna said, you have been here with us for about maybe 3 hours now. Thank you for your cooperation and participation here. We will continue running more sessions, webinars, training sessions maybe. We will have some journal articles maybe. We have loads of plans in our mind for our members. And together with our members, we are hoping to help all the institutions in Turkey and in the world, if possible, to improve their assessment practices, because sharing expertise and experience is critical and it's very valuable. So we believe we will be able to do it with the help of you. We have come to a stage when we were FOI, Forum on Assessment Issues community, we achieved lots of things all together, but we believe from now on, under the name of METASIG, we will create wonders. We are so optimistic and hopeful about this, and we again kindly invite you to become a member of our group. And finally, before we leave, just a quick feedback session, please. Just bear with us for just a couple of minutes more. And here is our feedback. And this is the QR code. You can just scan it. I'm going to share with you the link through the chat panel. Just bear with me a minute. Okay. So the link is in your in the chat panel already for everyone. Or you can basically type Menti in Google on your mobile phone, and on the website, you can just type in the code. That will be it. Now I'm opening the feedback form. And here we go. Okay, have you been able to access the feedback form? It will be an interactive one. We kindly ask you to give us immediate feedback. Of course, you can write back to us later after the session if you have more comments to make.